Okay, sorry guys, I'll let you continue the session. Go ahead, Kathryne.
Great, thank you, Vanessa, and thank you, Andy, for organizing this and inviting me to share a little bit about Scopus today. Really appreciate it. So hopefully you can all see my screen. I have just a quick presentation. It's just a couple slides to kind of give you a little orientation as to what Scopus is and what you can do with it. And then we'll spend most of the time actually looking at Scopus. So yeah, without further ado. Oh, actually, I guess just to reiterate what Vanessa said, please feel free to type any questions into the chat. There will be kind of a break about halfway through where we can talk about them, but I'm happy to also sort of take them on the fly. So great. So yeah, today's agenda is basically, we're going to go over what Scopus actually is, including an overview of what's in Scopus in terms of content, as well as a feature on Scopus that I'm going to highlight, which is the Scopus profiles for the authors and institutions. And then, as I said, we'll go into a demo and focus on kind of three main tasks that you can do with Scopus. So finding relevant research, finding collaborators or experts, or managing your own profile as an expert in your field, and then tracking research trends and performance using some of Scopus's built-in analytical tools. And then hopefully at the very end, we might have some time for questions. And if we don't, I was going to just drop my, my name and email address in the chat here. I'm always happy to answer any questions. And as Vanessa said, you have a great library full of Scopus experts as well who can help. So please feel free to reach out to me or to the library. And speaking of the library, I did just want to kind of flag that the way to get to Scopus is by visiting the library homepage. There's a little heading called Popular E-Resources, and then there's a link directly to Scopus there. So doing it this way will ensure that you're logging in through the library and that you get full access to Scopus. So you can feel free to follow along today or do this later. Okay, so in terms of what is Scopus, Scopus is an abstract and citation database, and it's kind of more than that. We ingest data from, as you can see, 5,000 or so publishers. This equals about 24,000 different journals, about 200,000 different books, and all told, this adds up to about 80 million items. I think we just crossed over the 80 million threshold, actually. So this includes articles, reviews, book chapters, all sorts of peer-reviewed material. From those documents, we algorithmically extract the authors who wrote those documents. So from this, we're up to about 16 million different author profiles. And then from the author profiles, we can also get to affiliation profiles or institutional profiles. And so we're up to about 70,000 of those. So really Scopus's kind of strength is that it has all of this data in one place and it's all very richly linked and connected. So in addition to just being able to use it to, find peer-reviewed scholarly resources, we have, as I said, a set of analytical tools built on top of that data. So you can do things like track the impact of research through citations and references. You can look for experts or collaborators based on, their publication history or by topic. And then we have some other sort of more analytical pieces of data, such as funding data. So you can sort of see what research is being funded by whom. And all of this is right in the main scopus.com or the Scopus you access through the library proxy. So it's all in one place. And hopefully, as I go through the demo, I'll kind of show you some of these different aspects of Scopus. In terms of what is in Scopus currently, you can see, so those 80 million or so records, they're weighted, health sciences is one of the bigger subject areas, but we have content across the disciplines. So Scopus is a great place to go for interdisciplinary research. It's also a great place to go for kind of, getting like a global sense of what's going on in a particular topic. We ingest data from journals that are published in 40 different languages from around the world. And this is actually, something that we're sort of investing into, is expanding our content to make it as broad and as high quality as possible. In terms of content types, as I said, there's journals up to about 25,000 currently. These numbers are as of August, but Scopus content is updated every day. So we're always kind of adding stuff to Scopus. So journals, conference proceedings, important in fields that rely on that, like engineering and math, and then books as well. So book series, like the annual review series, but also standalone monographs in social science and humanities fields. So again, one of the assets of Scopus is its breadth in terms of not just the quantity of content, but also where we're pulling that content from in terms of global distribution, linguistic distribution, and also subject area and discipline. Great. And then the final thing I'll flag here about Scopus, I mentioned those author and affiliation profiles, and I'll spend some time with that today. But what Scopus does to generate these profiles is we use a combination of an algorithm that goes through every document that we ingest and looks at things like the author's name, obviously, but also things like their affiliation, their email address, what topic they're working on, what sorts of journals they're publishing in. From all that data, we build these author profiles. And as I said, we're up to about 16 million right now. And then with those author profiles, we also have mechanisms by which you can correct them. So one of the things I'll show you today is how you can go in and actually look at your own author profile today and make sure that it's correct and accurate, has all of your documents, all of your publications there. And this is a good way to ensure that the author that you present as on Scopus is as full a representation of your scholarly output as possible. See a question about how Scopus is different from Pubmed, a great question. So Scopus actually includes 100% coverage of Medline. So everything in Medline is in Scopus, and there is a way that you can search for things that are specifically Medline indexed or not. But I mean, I think the main difference is just subject breadth, right? Pubmed is more specified or specialized, I guess, whereas Scopus really does draw from across the disciplines. There are links between Scopus and Pubmed, though, and I'll be sure to flag that when we look at an article. So what can you do with Scopus? So as I said, there are sort of three main things that I'm going to talk about today when it comes to using Scopus. One is just sort of, I think, what we might consider the sort of main use case of Scopus, how to stay up to date on relevant research in your field. I'll also highlight the author profiles as a way of not only finding experts and collaborators in fields you may be working in, but also as a way of making sure that your own author profile is accurate. And then I'll touch on some of the analytical features that are built into Scopus that you can use to sort of answer more complex questions about the research that you're finding on Scopus. So without further ado, we will go into Scopus itself. So again, I just wanted to flag, here's the library website. And if you scroll down to the side here, there's the Scopus link. Okay. Great. So here's Scopus, Scopus.com. And as you can see, there are sort of three main ways that you can search for content on Scopus based on that tripartite data model that I was flagging. So we have documents, authors, and affiliations. There's also an advanced search. I won't be touching too much on that today, just because I want to kind of make sure we get a kind of basic understanding of what Scopus is. But if you are interested in the advanced search, I know there's people at the library that use advanced search all the time and can help you with that. So Scopus works like most sort of search engines. You can see if there are search fields here. I can type things into these fields. I might start out with just a basic search for DNA recombination. If I click down on this arrow, there's a whole list of fields that Scopus will search in. These are extracted from those documents that we're taking in. So the basic search is article title, abstract, and keywords, but I could also search by the authors. I could search by the affiliation, funding information, all sorts of more specialized fields like chemical names, ORCID IDs, which is related to authors, DOIs if I know exactly what document I'm looking for. So these are all under this little arrow here, but I'm going to stick with just article, abstract, and keywords for now, just to kind of go through how Scopus works in like a basic search way. Using these plus and minus buttons, I can add more or less fields. So maybe I'm interested in mice. So let's put that in. And you can see I can sort of toggle the Boolean operators between those search terms here. Just stick with and then the last thing I'll show you just on the basic page here is ways that you can limit your search before you've even started by either publication year. So this is going to give me all years of Scopus, and Scopus content actually, it goes back to 1798. So maybe not for DNA recombination, but we have lots of historical material as well. But maybe I'm just interested in maybe the last few years here. I can also filter by what's new in Scopus, which is kind of neat down here. And then there are things like article document types. So if I just want to see articles, for example, or maybe book chapters, I could filter there. And access types. Currently, we just have open access as a filter here. So this means that it would be anything that comes up open access here is free to read. So that can be handy if you only want to see things that are that that you'll have access to. That open access filter is handy. So let's just do a search with my terms here, and I'll see what comes up. Great. So a few things to flag here. By default, Scopus will, I just typed in, remember, just DNA recombination, no quotation marks or anything. By default, Scopus will put ands in between words that you put into that search box. So in this case, it's finding anything with both of these words somewhere in the title, abstract, and keyword. If I go back and edit my search to make it, maybe I actually just want those two words next to each other, DNA recombination. I can make this a little bit more specific by adding quotation marks around that. So this is kind of standard behavior for a search engine, I think. And if I really want to make sure I'm only finding these words, the curly brackets will search for that phrase exactly. So that's a handy way if you find that you're getting lots and lots of search results and you want to find a way to kind of immediately limit things. Using those curly brackets will make sure that you're just getting that phrase as you've typed it out. So by default, if I leave just the quotation marks here, Scopus will look for things like plurals. It'll look for things like spelling variants. So for example, if I type in hematology, Scopus will find hematology the way that I've spelled it here, but it will also find it the way that I've spelled it with an extra A in the middle there. So the curly brackets will limit Scopus from doing any of those basically functions that are designed to find you as much as possible. So the other thing I just will show you very quickly here. Search here for homologous recombination, and then I was going to search for the BRCA genes, and you can see here I've added an asterisk, and this is a wildcard. So again, similar to lots of different search engines, Scopus recognizes that asterisk as a wildcard. So this will turn up searches for just BRCA. It'll turn up BRCA1, BRCA2. So that can be handy if you're looking to expand your search. If you use the quotation mark instead, that will only search for one character. So again, that's a way to sort of limit your searches. And all of these little search tips are handily accessible up here where it says search tips. And I like to point this out because I think, there's a lot that Scopus can do that we can't really get into today, but this little help page, so it'll take you to the Scopus Help Center. We'll go over all of these basics of how Scopus searches. So, your operators, finding approximate and exact phrases, special characters, how Scopus deals with plurals, etc. So, if you do get lost or things aren't quite maybe adding up, I do recommend checking out the search tips. Okay. The last thing I was going to show you, I'm just going to get rid of this. Let's do all years here. That I think is kind of neat is Scopus also will recognize, see, I've done all these searches before, any sort of special characters. So in this case, I've typed out amyloid beta protein. And if I go into my search here, you'll see that it has replaced beta, or it knows to look not just for beta spelled out B-E-T-A, but also for the Greek symbol beta. So this I think is again handy if you're working with anything that includes special characters like that. If I didn't want Scopus to do that, I could, again, put those curly brackets around. So in terms of the search results page, now that I've done a search here, a few things to point out. First, I can quickly filter my Scopus search results from the left-hand side here. So for example, again, if maybe I'm just interested in things having to do with mice, I can type mice into this search bar or anything, and you'll see it'll just append it to my search up here. So this is a quick way to sort of add search terms. You don't have to go back to the edit field there. I can also filter by a number of different facets. So document type, I've dragged up to the top. And one tip here, if you're doing a lot of Scopus searching, maybe a lot of Scopus searching in a day, you can actually drag these different filters around. So I drag document type up to the top because I often am only interested in looking at articles and conference papers, say. So that's handy. But if, for example, maybe you're interested in, go all the way to the bottom, in looking at funding information specifically, you might drag this, this funding filter up to the top. So that's just a nifty little tip about how the interface works here. So in general, though, I can click on any of these. So maybe I'll filter it by year. Again, just to get the last few years. And you can see that these buttons up at the top will illuminate. And I can either limit to those results or exclude from what I've selected there. So we'll limit to just things from the last few years. And I will point out the funding sponsor data again, because this is extracted using a combination of machine learning and natural language processing from the funding acknowledgements that appear on the documents that we ingest into Scopus. And we've actually spent a lot of time recently cleaning up this information so that it's as accurate as it can be. Yeah, this is if I, for example, only want to see things that are funded by NIH, I can select that here and then scroll back up and limit. And you'll see that Scopus has added that to my search to limit just to that particular funder. And if I maybe got a little too overzealous with the filters, I can always, not what I wanted to do. Well, that'll put them back in the right order, but let's just go back to the previous one. Okay, so that's filtering. Great. The other thing I can do with my results is export them to a number of places. So this is going to be a little export menu. I have CSV selected as my default, but you can see you can also take your results and put them into different reference managers, Mendeley, RefWorks here, just a generic RIS format if you're working with EndNote, BibTeX, and I can select the different things that I want. So maybe I really want the abstracts to come here, so that will bring those for me into whatever format I'm exporting. There are some limits on the exports. I think, especially if you're choosing options here, it will limit it to 2000. So that's when using some of the filters to maybe just go by year is one way to kind of work around those limits. I can download things. I'm not going to click that because I have all 6,000 things selected, but this will work with a web plugin called the Scopus Document Download Manager that I will I'll include a link to. And then there are some other kind of more analytical things I can do. I can look at the citation overview. So for this, I'm going to deselect all and just select the page. This is the first page of results here. And this will show me when these results were cited and by whom. So this is, again, getting into some of the richness that Scopus brings with that interconnected data. So since I've sorted by date, you can see that there aren't a ton of citations here yet. But if I sort by citation count, I might get a couple more. So this is kind of the sort of analytical, one of the analytical things that you can do with Scopus here. I can also just quickly get to documents that have cited, or so this is documents that have cited these search results. Or I can see what these search results have themselves cited. So that would be the references. So I can quickly go to those, and that will present the references for those selected documents in another search results page where I can, you know, export, save, do all those other things, filter. And then the final thing I'll just point out here, you can always, you know, print, email, etc. But you can also just quickly create a bibliography. This is kind of handy. I know a lot of students like this feature to sort of quickly get to just, here's a list of what I've searched for in Scopus. The final thing I'll point out is just these options up at the top here. So saving and setting alerts. These are features that you can do when you're signed into Scopus. So you'll note up here that I have my initials. This means that I've signed in. If you have an account already on ScienceDirect or Mendeley, that will work on Scopus as well, or any other Elsevier platform. And so with this sign in, you can see that I can save my search now. So if this is a search I'm going to run over and over, that's handy to do. I can also get alerts. So if I want to know maybe once a week, what's going on with this search, what new documents have been added to Scopus, I can set an alert. I could do it every day if I wanted. And that will send me an email with a list of results that match this search. So the set feed is going to be deprecated, so I'm not going to recommend doing that. But you know, you can do enough, I think, staying up to date with the alerts and the saved searches. Okay, any questions before I go into into the Analyze Search Results button? Anything else? I see there was some discussion, further discussion of Pubmed, and yeah, I think the abstracts are a big differentiator, and subject area, as I said. Great. So I'm going to click this button then, which is the Analyze Search Results, and this really starts to get at what we can do with the data that Scopus is built on. So any search results page will have that button at the top, and you can see that what it's done is basically given me a couple different ways to kind of slice the data that I've retrieved with this. So I can see documents by year. So you know, makes sense. There aren't very many in 2021 yet, but that's good to see. I can see documents by source. So if I want to know where is research on this topic being published the most, I can see my sources there. This will give me the top 5 in this particular view, but I can scroll down. You'll notice that lots of stuff on Scopus is hyperlinked. So if I click on this 325, for example, I'll do that in a new tab. It will take me to those 325 documents back on this analyze or on this search results page. So I can see documents by year. I can see documents by author, who's working in this field, who's doing the most. Where is this work being done? Here's documents by affiliation. So this is giving me institutions. I can also see countries. So if I'm interested maybe in you know, a collaboration with researchers working in China, this would be a good way to kind of quickly get to who's working on this field in that country. Documents by type, so this just shows me, you know, there's lots of articles, which makes sense, but also a lot of reviews, so that's kind of an interesting thing to note. Subject area, unsurprising there. And then again, funding sponsor, so I can, if I want to know who's funding research in this field, and what does that research look like, how do I quickly see what that research looks like, I can click on any of these, and then again, it will take me just to those documents that match that funding sponsor. So this Analyze Search Results feature is a really, as I said, quick way to kind of, once you have a search that you're happy with, to kind of get a bird's eye view of you know, where it's being done, who's doing it, who's funding it, what kind of journals is that work appearing in. So I recommend, you can kind of, you know, go into endless rabbit holes with the Analyze Search Results by sort of clicking and clicking. And it's interesting to sort of see what you come up with. So I do see why citations in Scopus are less than Google Scholar. So that has to do with what is in Scopus. So, and these citations over here, all sorted by cited, so you can actually see someone with citations. There we go. So these are cited by other documents that are in Scopus. So Scopus has a lot of stuff. It doesn't have everything. And, you know, if we think of that as an asset for Scopus, right? There's actually a, it's called the Content Selection and Advisory Board, which is a panel of experts that reviews every piece of content that's getting ingested into Scopus at the journal level, not at the article level. that would be that would be insane. But so they are making active selections of, this meets a set of criteria that means it's good enough for inclusion in Scopus. Google Scholar does not have transparent selection criteria like that. So that's why, they'll kind of let anyone in in a way, and they won't tell you why they've let that in. For Scopus, the big 5 criteria are that the journal is published in regular intervals, that they have a clear publication statement on their website. So that's a way of avoiding predatory publishing, or journals that kind of, crop up and then disappear. We also look for, you have to have references in Roman characters and abstracts in English. So that helps us do all of the interconnecting, sort of linking that we do. And then I'm actually blanking on the 5th one, but it's probably a big one. Oh, I think it's peer review. That's what it is. So that is a big one. So yeah, I mean, that's the other kind of, marker of quality for Scopus, is that everything's peer reviewed. So yeah, you will see slightly lower citation numbers in some fields, but again, that's because we're doing some content curation in ways that other platforms aren't. But yeah, it's a great question. And I know one that matters a lot to people as they start looking at their H indexes and stuff. But you can know that, if it's in Scopus, it has, some like quality behind it. So since we're talking about citations, I'll just jump into one of these documents just to quickly go over what you can see at the document level before we take a look at an author. So here's a document page, and this is, there's a lot of information on this page. We're actually about to redesign all of the document pages, so they're a little easier to parse and a little clearer. But for now, this is what the document page looks like. You can see up at the top, I again have this sort of export options where I can, do things with the document. I can export it into my reference manager. I can go to the full text. So, this is all up here. I can save it if I'm signed in, all of that. Basic publication information here, including authors. And again, you'll see everything's hyperlinked, so I can click on any of these authors and see what else they've written. The abstract, important. Some kind of proprietary linked things that we like to include to our other platforms. So here's a, SciVal is our research benchmarking platform. So here you can see directly what topic this article falls under. And these are actually kind of neat. You can see representative documents for these topics, who some of the top authors are, and keywords that we find in those documents. So I like the keywords a lot to think about. If you're sitting on an article and you need to write an abstract, for example, what are the words that you need to include in that abstract to make sure that it shows up with other work that's kind of highly cited in this field, for example. This gives you an idea. You can see the popularity of the words, as well as sort of words that are showing up more and less. So that's what the blue and the green mean. So you can also see these on the author page, and I'll point them out there, but they appear on every article in Scopus. I have some chemistry information. I have my keywords, and you can see this is how the highlight means that's what my search found. More chemical information down here, my funding details. And then down here, I'll point out, here's the PMID. So any document that has one of these means that it's in Medline. And if I were to click on this, I would get taken out to Pubmed. So that's how the two are connected there. And then finally, the references for this document, which I can always view in search results format. So if I wanted to go into that, analyze search results with the references, I could do that there. And then along the side, we have citing documents. So these are documents that have cited this article. So we can, we can sort of go forward and backwards with this article. Who has it cited? Who is citing it? We can do all of that from this page. The last thing I'll highlight just is the metrics that appear up here. We were just talking about citations. So you can see here are the site. Oh, here we go. Okay, here are the citations. And these are, as I said, citations from documents that are in Scopus. So, so that's what that count is. And then I also like to flag the plum metrics. So these are metrics that measure engagement beyond citations. And I think especially for either early career researchers or a paper that you just published, maybe hasn't had time to get cited yet. looking at the Pubmed metrics can be a good way of indicating or getting a sense of the momentum of that paper. So this one, for example, has been tweeted 3 times. If I were to click on this, I'd be able to see those tweets. I can also see how many people have saved this article in Mendeley, and I think ReadCube also shows up here, or on the EBSCO platforms, how many people are saving this. So all of these are indications that this article is, it's kind of doing something, right? Even though, and maybe in this case, it's been cited 400 times. But if I don't have those citations yet, and I want to say, look, people are looking at my stuff, the Pubmed metrics are a good way to do that. It's a Wikipedia reference. It's got to count for something, right? Okay, I think that about sums it up for the document details. I do want to make sure we have time to go into the author search. So if there are no other questions, I'll do that. Okay, so as I said, one of Scopus's another sort of key differentiator is not just the content that's in it, but the profiles that we generate from that content. So I was looking up one of your own researchers earlier today. You can see I can search by name and also affiliation or ORCID ID. Great, and so you can kind of get a sense here of how Scopus has taken all of the Jessica Tylers in the world and has sort of figured out which one is which. Primarily by things like middle initials. So there's JK, there's 2 JS's, there's a JE. Affiliation is also important. Location. We also look at things like field. So if you publish a lot in chemistry and then suddenly a Jessica Tyler paper shows up that's in art history, Scopus thinks they're probably different Jessica Tylers. So that's the kind of disambiguation that we do to generate these author profiles. If, for example, maybe, I don't know for sure, but maybe these are actually the same Jessica S. Tyler, I can always tell Scopus to merge them together, or ask, I guess, and then we'll review that and make sure that it makes sense. But so this is, if you do have a name that's a common name, it's helpful, I think, and worth it to go into Scopus and make sure that you're showing up the way that you should. So I won't merge those Jessica Tylers yet, but click on this one. So here is the author page, and any author on a document in Scopus has one of these. So you can see we have and this is recently redesigned. So if you're familiar with Scopus, it might look a little different than what you're used to. So we have the kind of, the key information up here, name and affiliation. You can see that Dr. Tyler has linked her Scopus, or someone has, to her ORCID ID. So we always recommend that. That's another good way to help us differentiate and make sure that the right documents are going to the right authors in Scopus. I can do all sorts of things here. I can set an alert to, whenever there's a new document by this author. I can also save this author to a list. So if I wanted to maybe just have everyone who's working on cancer biology at Weill Cornell, I could make a list of authors that way. And then I can edit this author profile. Maybe my preferred name is actually to go by my first initial, or maybe I have a new affiliation and I want to make sure that that's reflected, even though I haven't published yet at that school. I can make those sorts of changes here. So beyond the basic information, I have the kind of key metrics. So I can see documents, citations received by those documents, and an H-index graph. You can get a sense of productivity over time in terms of publications and citations. And then I get, again, those topics that I was talking about, that if I click on one of these, I can see, again, what has this author contributed to those topics? How cited are they? How impactful are they? That's what this field-weighted citation impact is. And then if I scroll down, I can sometimes have to do that. Nope, well, here's the table at least. So I can see what those keywords are again for that topic. Let's close that. Great, and then so then below the fold here, as it were, I can see everything by this author, everything that has cited this author's documents, and then a sense of the author's co-authors as well. This is currently limited to just the top 150 by number of documents. But if I clicked view in search results format, I would get every article that or every author that is a co-author. So again, from the author page, I can do some kind of quick analytical work using some of Scopus's built-in tools. If I analyze author output by clicking on that little button, it'll bring up a similar sort of analyze window to the analyze search results. So I can, again, quickly see where is this author publishing. In this case, there are a couple journals that she has published in more than others. So that's interesting to know. I can get a sense of time. I can get a sense of the subject fields that this author is publishing in. Here's that H-index graph. So this is the number of documents that have at least the same number of citations, in this case 35. And those documents are listed over here and with the site in the descending citation order. So this is the sort of thing that we used to have to do by hand. Scopus will just do that quickly. And then co-authors as well. If I wanted to get even more into it with the analyze search results, I can go back to the author page here. And I can, again, view list in search results format. So this will take all 93 of Dr. Tyler's documents and put them in search results. And now I can analyze this and do a little, some more kind of analytical work here. So once this comes up, maybe, maybe I really want to know who's funding her work. What do these documents look like? So that quickly gets me to there. Or where is she publishing in, and what do these journals look like? And actually the last thing I'll do before opening up for a couple more questions, hopefully, is just to point out that from this analyze search results page, when you're looking at this documents per year by source, you can click on compare sources. And so what this will do is take those 5 journals that I was just looking at and let me kind of dive a little bit more into what basically journal level metrics for those journals. So here you can see I pulled in 5 different cell biology type journals. This is showing me their site score. So this is, if you're familiar with impact factor, this is kind of the Scopus version. It's a ratio of number of citations received over the last 4 years by a journal over the number of documents published in that journal for the last 4 years. So this is telling me that Cell, unsurprisingly, has a pretty high site score, followed by Molecular Cell, and the other 3 are sort of very similar and grouped up there. I have a couple other metrics that I can look at as well. Scimago Journal Rank is a prestige metric. So this is similar to Google PageRank. If you're cited by more prestigious journals, your rank goes up, and if you're cited by less prestigious journals, your rank goes down. You can see that there's same kind of top 2 here, interestingly, though with some different kind of trends. And then the source normalized impact for paper per paper. It's basically a way of recognizing that there are different citation practices across disciplines. So this can be helpful if you're looking at, these are all kind of journals in the same basic discipline. But if you're comparing interdisciplinary journals or journals across disciplines, using that source normalized impact for paper accounts for different citation practices. So you can kind of see, get a sense of how they stack up, even though they're maybe not, journals in the same field. So again, if I have a paper and I'm thinking, which of these journals should I publish in? If I'm really concerned about getting cited, well, obviously I'd want to go to Cell, but you can see that, Molecular Cell has kind of an interesting trend of getting more and more citations there. Another thing I might just really want to make sure that I get published, right? So who's publishing the most documents every year? This just sort of gives me a raw count of that. Again, these 2 are at the top, but you can see that Cell Cycle has separated itself from those other 2. Percent not cited in a year is another way of thinking about, making sure that your work gets as much impact as possible. And then percent review articles too is handy. Reviews tend to be cited more than regular articles. So yeah, great. So I think I'm going to leave it at that. I see we have 4 more minutes, and I do want to make sure that if there are questions or anything else, we have time to go over that.
Thank you so much, Kathryne. I did see that there is a question from Stephen Pond. I don't know if you can see it or,
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't.
Okay.
So, yeah, so the curly brackets and the quotation marks are different. So the quotation marks, and actually a good way to illustrate this would be, too many monitors going on, here we go. If I do just a document search for heart attack, this is a good way to illustrate this. Within the quotation marks, this will find heart attack, it'll find heart attacks, so it'll still do that like plural searching. It'll also find heart hyphen attack, so different spelling variations. So if I just wanted to make sure that I'm only finding maybe heart hyphen attack, those curly brackets will limit it just to that, exactly the way I typed it. No plurals, no spelling variations or anything. So that's the answer to that. In terms of limiting to documents you have access to from Cornell, there isn't a way to do that.
I can actually field that question, Stephen. We will do our best to get you pretty much any article you find in Scopus. You can't see it in Kathryne's view because she's not affiliated with Weill Cornell, but normally when you log in through the library, you'll see the little red Get It button, and just click that button to get full text. And that'll either take you directly to the full text of the article, or it'll say place an interlibrary loan request. Either way, we can get it for you. And if you need help with that, just use the Ask Us button on the library homepage.
Yeah, in the sort of environment that I'm in, oops, clicking errantly here. Those buttons usually show up right here on the document page. So here's my full text button, and this is usually like a library link resolver button. So it's probably red and says get it at Cornell. But you can also see it on the search results page, usually right below the title.
Andy, I was going to ask, did you have any other comments or helpful tips from, a librarian's perspective regarding Scopus that you wanted to add?
No, I think Kathryne covered it pretty well. If any of you ever need help using Scopus or learning more about its functionality, again, use that Ask Us button on the library homepage, and we can schedule a consultation, some additional training for you. There are a lot of features that you might want more practice with, or that we didn't get time to cover today, that you may find useful, particularly those of you who may be applying for some kind of promotion or tenure, because Scopus has so many interesting bibliographic metrics. So don't hesitate to reach out to us if you're interested in further training or have questions.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think, looking yourself up on Scopus and making sure that your profile is accurate is kind of the first step, but then being able to sort of do stuff with, the documents and the metrics that show up on your profile. It seems like, yeah, a great reason to reach out to the library, who would obviously have more insight into the sort of Cornell specifics that would be useful in that regard.
Well, it looks like we are at time. I don't see any more questions, so it looks like we answered them all. But in case you do have questions after this, again, I will be reaching out via email as a follow-up with the link to this video recording. And I know that Kathryne dropped her information in the chat, but I'll also make sure that it's included in that email so that everyone has a copy of it. And I'll include Andy's information as well, and that Ask Us link that he is referring to on the library's website. But I just want to thank Kathryne and Andy so much for taking the time to tell us more about Scopus. Thank you to everyone who logged in today, to also, learn more. And I hope you guys take a chance to use it if you haven't already. Just thanks all around. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you again, Kathryne and Andy, for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
Awesome.
Always a pleasure. Have a good one, everybody.
Have a great day, everyone.